The space around Earth had never been so quiet. Colonel Laura Kane stared at the holographic display, her eyes tracing the orbits of countless satellites and defense platforms surrounding humanity's home planet. The soft blue glow illuminated her weathered face, casting shadows that deepened the lines etched by years of command. Her dark hair, streaked with premature silver, was pulled back in a severe knot at the nape of her neck. The Solis Space Command Station hung in Earth orbit like a gleaming sentinel, its observation deck offering the most comprehensive view of humanity's first and final line of defense. "Colonel," called a voice from behind her, "the Council is assembling. They're expecting you." Kane nodded without turning. Lieutenant Rivera, her aide, knew better than to expect more acknowledgement when the colonel was deep in thought. The reports had been coming in for weeks. Strange energy signatures at the edge of the solar system, communications disruptions in the outer colonies, and unidentified objects moving in formation. All signs pointed to what humanity had both feared and anticipated since first venturing beyond their planet. They were no longer alone, and the newcomers were organized. "Tell them I'm on my way," Kane finally said, her voice carrying the weight of command that had earned her the leadership of Earth's frontline fleet. The year was 2387, and humanity had spread throughout their solar system, establishing colonies on Mars, the Moon, and several of Jupiter's and Saturn's moons. Technological advancements had accelerated beyond what previous generations could have imagined. Yet Kane knew that compared to whatever waited at the edge of their system, Earth might still be woefully unprepared. As she made her way through the station's pristine corridors, officers and crew members nodded respectfully. Everyone knew something was coming. The tension aboard the station had been building for days, creating an almost tangible pressure in the recycled air. The Interplanetary Council chamber was a marvel of human engineering, a perfect hemisphere with seats arranged in concentric circles, all facing a central holographic projection area. Representatives from Earth, Mars, and the various space colonies sat in their designated places, their faces grim with anticipation. Kane took her position at the military section, beside Admiral Takashi, the overall commander of Earth's defense forces. "Colonel Kane," acknowledged Council President Elena Rossi, her Italian accent still noticeable despite years of standardized speech training. "We're waiting for the final confirmation before beginning." Kane nodded, studying the council members. Already, she could see the divisions forming, those whose expressions showed resignation, perhaps even suggesting surrender might be the wisest course, and those whose jaws were set in determination, ready to fight for humanity's independence no matter the cost. Rossi herself seemed caught between these two camps, her diplomatic training making her expressions difficult to read. The chamber lights dimmed, and a technician's voice announced, "Incoming transmission from Outer System Monitoring Station Epsilon, priority Zeta 0. The holographic projector flared to life, displaying the haggard face of Commander Lewis from the monitoring station. His voice came through clearly, but his image flickered with interference. "Council members, Colonel Kane, this is Commander Lewis. We have confirmation. A fleet of unknown vessels has entered the solar system and is maintaining position just beyond Neptune's orbit. We count at least 70 capital ships and hundreds of smaller craft. Their configuration matches nothing in our database." A murmur ran through the chamber as council members exchanged worried glances. "Commander," Kane spoke up, her voice cutting through the growing noise. "Have they made any attempt at communication?" Lewis's image flickered again. "Yes, Colonel. Approximately 30 minutes ago. We received a transmission in multiple Earth languages. The message was brief. The time has come for your species to embrace subjugation or face extinction. The Galactic Empire awaits your response." The chamber erupted in voices, fear giving way to panic among some representatives. President Rossi stood, raising her hands for silence. "Commander Lewis, what is their current activity?" she asked. They're maintaining position, Madam President, but our sensors detect energy buildups consistent with weapon systems being brought online. Whatever their technology, it's far beyond our current understanding. The energy readings are unprecedented. Kane's mind raced, analyzing the tactical implications. 70 capital ships was an overwhelming force. Earth's entire defense fleet consisted of only 22 major vessels, supported by fighter squadrons and defense platforms. But they had home field advantage, knowledge of the system, and the element of surprise if the invaders underestimated humanity's resolve. Thank you, Commander. Maintain observation and report any changes immediately, President Rossi ordered. As Lewis's image faded, she turned to the Council. We must decide our response quickly. The future of humanity depends on what we do in the next few hours. The debate that followed was heated and fractured. Some council members advocated immediate surrender to preserve lives, arguing that resistance against such superior force would only result in needless deaths. Others, primarily representatives from the outer colonies that had fought hard for their independence from Earth, vehemently opposed any capitulation. "We cannot simply hand over humanity's freedom because we're afraid," shouted the Mars representative, pounding his fist on the table. "Our ancestors didn't cross the void between planets to bow to the first aliens who threaten us." Kane listened to the arguments, her tactical mind already formulating potential strategies. When President Rossi finally called on her, the chamber fell silent. "Colonel Kane, as commander of our frontline fleet, what is your assessment?" Kane stood, her posture military straight. "Madam President, Council members, based on the information we have, this galactic empire possesses technology far beyond our current capabilities. A direct confrontation with their fleet would likely result in significant casualties." Several council members nodded, some with relief that the military was being realistic. "However," Kane continued, her voice hardening, "I do not recommend surrender. If their intention is conquest rather than annihilation, we have tactical advantages we can leverage. Our system is vast, with numerous hiding places, asteroid fields, and gravitational anomalies we know intimately. We have research stations throughout the system working on experimental technologies that might give us an edge. Most importantly, we have something worth fighting for: our freedom and our home." The chamber remained silent as Kane outlined her preliminary plan: a defensive posture, mobilization of all available resources, and preparation for asymmetric warfare if necessary. "We should also attempt direct communication," she concluded. "Their message suggests they're accustomed to species surrendering without resistance. Our response alone might give them pause." President Rossi thanked Kane and called for a vote. After tense deliberation, the Council narrowly approved a dual approach: preparation for defense while attempting diplomatic communication. As the meeting adjourned, Kane was already issuing orders via her neural implant, her subvocal commands being transmitted to fleet headquarters. They would need every ship, every weapon, and every brave soul willing to stand against the coming storm. Admiral Takashi caught up with her in the corridor. "A fine speech, Colonel. But do you really believe we have a chance?" Kane met his gaze steadily. "Sir, humanity has always excelled when our backs are against the wall. If these invaders think we'll surrender our home without a fight, they've gravely misunderstood our species." The Admiral's weathered face broke into a grim smile. "Then, let's make sure they learn that lesson well." Within hours, the mobilization order had been transmitted throughout the solar system. Civilian ships were being retrofitted with hastily manufactured weapon systems. Defense platforms that had been in standby mode for decades were being reactivated. On Earth, Mars, and the moon colonies, volunteers lined up outside recruitment centers, eager to play their part in humanity's defense. In her quarters aboard the flagship Indomitable, Kane reviewed the latest intelligence reports. The alien fleet had begun to move inward, bypassing the outer planets without engagement. Their trajectory suggested they were heading directly for Earth, ignoring the smaller colonies and research stations. A priority communication alert flashed across her neural interface. "Colonel Kane," came the voice of Dr. Min Thao, head of the Quantum Neural Network Research Division. "I need to speak with you immediately. We may have discovered something crucial about the enemy's communication systems." "I'm listening, Doctor," Kane replied, instantly alert. "When we analyzed the transmission from the Galactic Fleet, we detected underlying patterns consistent with an advanced form of neural network communication. It's similar to the experimental systems we've been developing, but far more sophisticated. The important thing is, we believe there might be vulnerabilities we can exploit." Kane sat forward. "What kind of vulnerabilities?" "Their ships appear to be linked through a centralized command structure, a neural network that coordinates their movements with incredible precision. If we could disrupt that network or introduce conflicting signals, we could cause chaos in their fleet," Kane finished. "How soon can you develop something we can use?" There was a pause. "With conventional research protocols, years, but given our situation, perhaps days, if I have unrestricted access to the quantum computing cores and permission to implement untested theories." "You have it," Kane said without hesitation. "Requisition whatever personnel and resources you need. This is now Priority Alpha." As she ended the communication, Kane felt the first stirring of hope. They might still be outgunned and outnumbered, but humanity had always been adaptable, creative, and stubborn. These qualities had carried them through countless crises on Earth and would now be tested against the stars themselves. The Interplanetary Council reconvened the following day to hear the Galactic Empire's response to their communication attempt. President Rossi looked exhausted, the weight of humanity's future evident in the dark circles beneath her eyes. "The transmission we sent included information about our civilization, our desire for peaceful coexistence, and our firm intention to maintain our independence," she explained. The response was concerning. The holographic display activated, showing a humanoid figure with distinctly non-human features. Its skin had a metallic sheen, and multiple eyes, arranged in a circular pattern, dominated its face. When it spoke, its voice was a synthetic blend of tones, somehow conveying both indifference and menace. "Humans of the Sol system. I am Zero Sirius, commander of the Imperial Subjugation Fleet. Your response has been noted and categorized as resistant pre-integration species. This classification does not change the inevitable outcome. The Galactic Empire has incorporated 1,742 species into its dominion. You will be the 1,743rd. Resistance is a temporary state that has never persisted. Prepare your leadership for extraction and integration. All military assets are to be powered down within 12 Earth hours. Non-compliance will result in demonstration of consequences." The transmission ended, leaving the council chamber in stunned silence. "Extraction and integration?" the Luna representative finally asked. "What does that mean?" "Nothing good," Kane responded grimly. "They're not here for resources or territory. They want us, humanity itself, as their resource." President Rossi cleared her throat. "The military mobilization will continue as planned, but we must also prepare our people for what's coming. Council members will return to their respective colonies to oversee evacuation to hardened shelters and emergency protocols." The discussion turned to practical matters: distribution of resources, coordination of military responses, and contingency plans. Throughout it all, Kane's mind was racing, developing and discarding strategies, calculating odds, and preparing for the worst while hoping for Dr. Thao's breakthrough. As the meeting concluded, Ambassador Rossi approached Kane privately. "Colonel, I was among those who initially favored a more diplomatic approach. I want you to know that I now stand firmly behind your strategy. They've made it clear negotiation isn't an option." Kane nodded. Thank you, Madam Ambassador. Your support will help unify our people in the coming days. Do we truly have a chance? Rossi asked, her diplomatic mask slipping to reveal the frightened human beneath. Kane chose her words carefully. In conventional warfare, no. But this won't be conventional. We're fighting for our existence, our freedom, our very humanity. That gives us something they can't match: desperation and determination. As Kane returned to the Indomitable, reports came in of the Empire's fleet advancing past the orbit of Jupiter. Time was running short. Lieutenant Arjun Patel, commander of the scout vessel Pathfinder, led the first reconnaissance mission to observe the enemy fleet up close. His ship, designed for stealth and speed, approached the massive formation under full cloaking protocols. "Mother of stars," whispered his sensor officer as they got their first visual. "Those aren't ships, they're moving cities." The Imperial vessels dwarfed anything humanity had built. The smallest was at least twice the size of Earth's largest battleship, while the command vessel at the center of the formation was a behemoth that defied comprehension. A spinning, artificial world with what appeared to be its own atmosphere. "Maintain emissions control," Patel ordered, his voice steady despite the fear clutching at his heart. "Record everything. We need to identify weapon emplacements, communication arrays, potential weak points." For 3 hours, they shadowed the fleet, gathering terabytes of sensor data. As they prepared to withdraw, disaster struck. "Energy spike!" shouted the tactical officer. "They've locked onto us." Patel had barely begun evasive maneuvers when the first Imperial weapon struck. It wasn't a conventional energy beam or projectile, but something that seemed to distort space itself around the Pathfinder. Systems failed instantly, and the hull began to buckle under forces that defied normal physics. "Emergency beacon!" Patel ordered, knowing it was their last act. "Transmit all data back to command." As the Pathfinder disintegrated around them, Lieutenant Patel had time for one final message. "This is real war now. May Earth forgive us for bringing this upon them." Back at Solus Command, Kane received the Pathfinder's data dump and final transmission. The loss of Patel and his crew was a heavy blow, but their sacrifice had provided crucial intelligence. The sensor readings confirmed what Dr. Thau had theorized. The Imperial ships were indeed linked through some form of neural network, with the central command vessel serving as the primary node. "Colonel," Dr. Thau's voice came through her neural implant, excitement evident despite the grim circumstances. "We've identified a potential vulnerability in their network. Their neural communications use quantum entanglement principles, similar to our experimental systems, but on a scale we've never achieved. The complexity makes it powerful, but also potentially fragile if the right kind of interference is introduced." "What kind of interference?" Kane asked. "A virus, essentially, but one that operates on quantum principles. It would need to be physically introduced into their network through one of their communication nodes. Once inside, it could spread throughout their entire fleet, causing cascade failures in their command structure." Kane absorbed this information, already seeing the outlines of a desperate plan. "How close would we need to get to introduce this virus?" "Physical contact with one of their ships," Thau replied, her voice faltering slightly. "Preferably the command vessel, but any ship in their network would eventually spread the virus." "Understood. Have your team prepare the virus. I'll figure out the delivery method." As she ended the communication, Kane called an emergency meeting of her command staff. The plan that emerged was as daring as it was desperate. A trap designed to lure a portion of the Imperial fleet into the dense asteroid field known as the Astra Belt, where Earth's forces might have a fighting chance thanks to their superior maneuverability and knowledge of the terrain. Meanwhile, a small Special Forces team would attempt to infiltrate the Imperial command vessel during the chaos of battle. Their mission: deliver Dr. Thau's virus directly into the enemy's neural network. The plan had countless ways to fail, and only a narrow path to success. But as Kane reminded her officers, we're not fighting for victory in the conventional sense. We're fighting for survival and freedom. If we lose, humanity becomes just another conquered species in their collection. That's not a future I'm willing to accept. As preparations accelerated, the Imperial fleet crossed the orbit of Mars, bypassing the Red Planet's colonies without engagement. Their target was clearly Earth itself, the heart of human civilization and the seat of its government and military command. President Rossi addressed the combined populations of Earth and its colonies in a broadcast that reached every settlement, ship, and station throughout the system. "Citizens of Earth and humanity's children throughout the stars," she began, her voice steady despite the tremendous pressure. "An unprecedented threat approaches our homeworld, the Galactic Empire, a force that has subjugated countless species, now demands our surrender and submission. They offer a choice that is no choice at all, subjugation or extinction." She paused, her eyes fierce with determination. "Humanity's answer is neither. We choose freedom. We choose independence. We choose to stand and fight for our right to determine our own destiny among the stars." The response was immediate and overwhelming. Civilian ships volunteered for dangerous supply runs. Retired military personnel reported for duty. Research facilities worked around the clock to adapt existing technologies for warfare. In orbit around Earth, the hastily assembled defense fleet prepared for what might be humanity's final stand. The indomitable, Kane's flagship, took position at the center of the formation, surrounded by the best ships and crews Earth had to offer. "Fleet status report," Kane ordered as she entered the bridge, the final battle plan uploaded to her neural implant. "All ships in position, Colonel," reported Commander Santiago, her executive officer. "The Astra Belt trap is set. Special Forces team is aboard the Shadow Strike, awaiting deployment orders." Kane nodded, studying the tactical display. The enemy fleet had separated, with approximately one-third of their vessels diverting toward the Astra Belt, where unusual energy readings had been detected, a deliberate lure planted by Dr. Thau's team. The remaining ships, including the massive command vessel, continued on course for Earth. "Signal all ships," Kane ordered. "Operation Disruptor begins now." Throughout the solar system, humanity held its collective breath as the battle for their existence began. On Earth, civilians huddled in hardened shelters, watching real-time holographic projections of the unfolding conflict. On Mars and the Moon, colony defenses went to maximum alert, prepared to fight to the last if Earth fell. The first engagement occurred at the edges of the Astra Belt. Imperial scout ships encountered what appeared to be a small, disorganized group of Earth vessels that immediately turned and fled deeper into the asteroid field. The Imperial ships followed, their superior weapons easily destroying several human vessels that couldn't escape quickly enough. What the Imperial forces didn't realize was that each destroyed ship released thousands of specially designed disruptor mines, tiny devices that floated innocuously among the asteroids, virtually undetectable until activated. As more Imperial ships entered the dense field in pursuit, Kane gave the order. "Activate the disruptor net." Throughout the Astra Belt, the mines simultaneously activated, creating a web of energy distortions that interfered with the Imperial neural network. Ships that had been moving with perfect coordination suddenly found themselves cut off from the command structure. Some collided with asteroids, others fired upon friendly vessels in confusion. "It's working," Santiago reported, unable to keep the surprise from his voice. "Their formation is breaking down." Kane allowed herself a moment of satisfaction before focusing on the next phase. "Signal the Shadow Strike. They have their opening." In the shadow of Mars' moon, Phobos, the stealth vessel, Shadow Strike powered up its experimental drive system. Aboard, a team of 12 Special Forces operators, led by Major Winters, prepared for what was likely a one-way mission. "Remember," Winters told his team as they performed final equipment checks, Our objective is the central communication node on the Imperial command vessel. Dr. Thau's virus must be uploaded directly into their system. Once inside, it will spread throughout their network, disrupting their entire command structure. The operators nodded grimly. Each carried a quantum data module containing a copy of the virus, ensuring redundancy if some team members didn't make it to the objective. Their suits were the most advanced humanity had developed: stealth systems, emergency life support, and built-in weapons that might give them a fighting chance against whatever awaited inside the alien vessel. As the Shadow Strike accelerated toward its target, the main battle unfolded near Earth orbit. The Imperial fleet, though somewhat disorganized by the disruption of a part of their network, still presented an overwhelming force. Their weapons tore through Earth's defensive lines, destroying ships and platforms with terrifying efficiency. Aboard the Indomitable, Kane directed the defense with a calm born of absolute focus. All ships, implement evasion pattern Delta. Target their forward weapon emplacements with concentrated fire. Earth's ships darted around the much larger Imperial vessels, using their superior maneuverability to stay just out of reach of the most devastating weapons while looking for weaknesses to exploit. It was like gnats attacking elephants, individually ineffective, but the cumulative damage began to take a toll. Still, the battle was clearly one-sided. For every Imperial ship damaged, 3 Earth vessels were destroyed. Defense platforms exploded in brilliant flashes as they were systematically eliminated. The Indomitable itself shuddered under repeated impacts, its shields failing and hull integrity compromised in multiple sections. "Colonel," Santiago reported grimly, "at current attrition rates, we'll lose the entire fleet within 2 hours." Kane nodded, her expression unchanged. "We don't need to win, Commander. We just need to hold out long enough for the Shadow Strike to complete its mission." On the tactical display, she watched the tiny blip that represented humanity's last, best hope as it approached the massive Imperial command vessel. The Shadow Strike's advanced stealth systems allowed it to slip through the Imperial fleet's outer defenses. As they approached the command vessel, a colossal structure that dwarfed even the largest Imperial ships, the true scale of what they faced became apparent. "That thing must be at least 20 kilometers in diameter," whispered the Shadow Strike's pilot. "How are we supposed to find anything in there?" Dr. Thau's analysis of their communication patterns indicates the central node should be near the equatorial section. Major Winters replied, "Look for unusual energy emissions consistent with quantum entanglement technology." After a tense orbital scan, they identified a promising entry point, what appeared to be a maintenance dock where smaller vessels were entering and exiting. "That's our way in," Winters decided. "Adjust our profile to match their service vessels and approach with the next group." The plan worked, to a point. The Shadow Strike successfully entered the massive dock alongside several Imperial maintenance craft. But, as they attempted to secure the vessel and disembark, automated security systems detected the incompatible technology. Alarms blared throughout the dock as mechanical sentries converged on the human ship. "Plan B," Winters ordered calmly. "Abandon ship. Emergency deployment. Head for the central core. Move." The Special Forces team blasted their way out of the Shadow Strike moments before it was engulfed in energy weapons fire. Using their suit thrusters, they scattered in different directions, making it impossible for the security systems to track them all. Inside the Imperial vessel, they encountered an environment utterly alien to human experience. Gravity shifted unpredictably, corridors seemed to reconfigure themselves, and the defenders, cybernetically enhanced beings that moved with unnatural speed and precision, emerged from hidden compartments to hunt the intruders. One by one, the human operators fell. Some died fighting, taking numerous enemies with them. Others sacrificed themselves to allow their comrades to advance deeper into the vessel. With each loss, the survivors uploaded their teammates' copy of the virus to their own systems, ensuring the precious cargo remained intact. After what felt like hours of desperate fighting and evasion, only Major Winters and Sergeant Cooper remained, battered and low on ammunition, but still advancing toward their objective. "Energy readings are off the charts," Cooper reported, scanning through a translucent barrier. "I think we've found it." Beyond the barrier lay a vast chamber, dominated by a pulsating crystalline structure. Connections resembling neural pathways extended outward in all directions, disappearing into the walls, floor, and ceiling. "That's it," Winters confirmed. "The central node of their neural network. We need to get the virus into that crystal matrix." As they prepared to breach the barrier, Imperial defenders converged from multiple directions. Cooper turned to face them, checking his remaining ammunition. "I'll hold them off," he said simply. "You deliver the package." Winters clasped his comrade's shoulder. "Make it count, Sergeant." "Always do, sir." As Cooper engaged the approaching enemies in a hail of weapons fire, Winters used their last explosive charge to breach the barrier. Alarms screeched, and emergency containment fields began to activate. But he was already sprinting toward the crystal matrix, the combined virus data module clutched in his hand. Imperial defenders poured into the chamber from other entrances, their weapons locked on the lone human. Winters took hit after hit, his armor absorbing some damage but failing under the concentrated fire. Still, he pushed forward, his determination undiminished even as his life signs faltered. With a final surge of strength, he reached the crystal matrix and slammed the virus module directly into its surface. The quantum interface activated automatically, establishing a connection and beginning the upload process. As Winters collapsed at the base of the matrix, his final act was to protect the module with his body, ensuring the upload completed. His last thought was of Earth, blue and beautiful against the blackness of space, a home worth dying for. Throughout the Imperial command vessel, systems began to falter as the virus spread through the neural network. Lights flickered, gravity failed in multiple sections, defensive weapons powered down mid-firing sequence. Aboard the Indomitable, Kane watched with growing hope as the Imperial command vessel's coordinated attacks suddenly became erratic. "Something's happening," Santiago reported. "Their fire patterns are breaking down. Communications between their ships are becoming chaotic." Kane allowed herself a small smile. The Shadow Strike team succeeded. "Signal all remaining ships. Focus fire on the command vessel's propulsion systems. Don't let it retreat." Earth's battered fleet rallied, concentrating their attacks on the now vulnerable behemoth. Without its neural network coordination, the Imperial vessel's defenses became uneven, with some sections failing completely, while others fired at random targets, sometimes hitting their own ships. Throughout the Imperial fleet, the effect cascaded as the virus spread from ship to ship via their quantum-entangled communications. Vessels that had been moving with perfect precision now drifted aimlessly, or fired upon one another in confusion. Some attempted to retreat, only to collide with their suddenly unpredictable companions. In the midst of this chaos, the Imperial Commander Zero Serios broadcast one final message. "This resistance, unprecedented. Warning to all Imperial forces. Humans employ neural disruption technology. Avoid engagement. Repeat, avoid." The transmission cut off abruptly as the command vessel's central systems collapsed entirely, the virus having reached its core processors. The battle wasn't immediately over. Individual Imperial ships continued fighting, some with increased ferocity as their commanders realized what was happening. But the coordinated assault had transformed into a disorganized melee that gave Earth's forces a fighting chance. After 3 more hours of desperate combat, the remaining Imperial vessels began a full retreat, abandoning their disabled companions and the shattered command vessel. They accelerated toward the outer system, apparently intent on escaping the solar system entirely. As the last enemy ships disappeared from long-range sensors, exhausted cheers erupted throughout Earth's fleet. Ships that could barely maintain life support limped back toward orbital docks, Emergency teams rushed to rescue survivors from crippled vessels. The cost had been enormous. Nearly 70% of Earth's military space assets destroyed or severely damaged. But humanity remained free. In the aftermath, recovery teams boarded the disabled Imperial command vessel, retrieving valuable technology and, more importantly, the bodies of the brave operators who had sacrificed everything to deliver the virus. Major Winters was found still clutching the virus module, his mission complete, even as his life ended. 1 week after the battle, the Interplanetary Council convened again in the Solus command station. The mood was somber despite the victory. Too many had died for unbridled celebration. President Rossi opened the session with a moment of silence for the fallen before addressing the representatives. We have survived our first encounter with the Galactic Empire, but we would be foolish to believe it will be the last. They will return, perhaps with different tactics, perhaps with technology resistant to our virus. We must prepare. Colonel Kane, now promoted to Admiral for her leadership during the crisis, presented the military assessment. We've recovered significant technology from the disabled Imperial vessels. Dr. Thau's team is already working to adapt it for our use. Additionally, we've detected transmissions between the retreating Imperial ships and other sectors of space. We believe they're communicating with other subjugated worlds that may have similar desires for freedom. This information sparked intense discussion among the council members. The representative from Mars was the first to explicitly suggest what many were thinking. Perhaps we should reach out to these other worlds. An alliance of resistance against the Empire would be stronger than Earth standing alone. President Rossi looked to Kane for her opinion. The newly promoted admiral considered carefully before responding. The Empire has conquered over 1,000 worlds by isolating and overwhelming them one by one. If we could create a network of resistance, sharing technology, intelligence, and resources, we might stand a better chance when they return. And make no mistake, they will return. The vote was unanimous. Earth would reach out to other worlds that had fallen under Imperial control, offering the virus technology and the hope of freedom in exchange for alliance and mutual defense. As the council adjourned, Ambassador Rossi approached Kane privately. You know, Admiral, when this crisis began, I was among those who thought resistance was futile, that we should negotiate the best terms possible for humanity's subjugation. Kane nodded, understanding the weight of such an admission from a diplomat of Rossi's stature. I was wrong, Rossi continued. What you and your forces accomplished, what Dr. Thau and the Shadow Strike team sacrificed, proved that freedom is never futile, no matter the odds. We warned them to flee, Kane said quietly. They chose to ignore that warning. And paid the price for their arrogance, Rossi agreed. But next time, they'll come prepared for our resistance. Kane's expression hardened with determination. Then, we'll just have to be more creative, more determined, and more united than they expect. Freedom isn't negotiable. Ambassador, not for humanity, not for any species that values its own destiny. As they looked out at Earth, shining blue and green below them, Kane thought of all those who had died to preserve that freedom. Patel and his scout crew, Winters and the Shadow Strike team, thousands of naval personnel throughout the fleet. Their sacrifice would not be forgotten, nor would it be in vain. Across the solar system, humanity began rebuilding, strengthening defenses, and preparing for the day when the Empire would return. But they also looked outward with new purpose, no longer alone in the universe, but part of a community of worlds with a common enemy and a shared desire for liberty. The first messages had already been sent to detected resistance movements on conquered worlds, carried by swift stealth vessels slipping past Imperial patrols. We have found a way to fight back. We have found a way to be free. Join us. And in distant corners of the galaxy, sparks of hope began to ignite as the message spread from world to world. Humanity had stood against the Galactic Empire and survived. The invincible had proven vulnerable. The impossible had become possible. The war for freedom had only just begun,